Welcome once again to another live stream. I love that music. It's a kind of magic, of course, with the honourable gentleman Hamish McLay and my good self, Gareth with the many purple hats. And it is at this point that we often discuss issues that pertain to the membership of the Independent Personal Search Association. It is a group of people who are focused on ensuring that you can get the best possible searches when you are looking to get your commercial or your domestic dwelling purchased, to make sure you know the very best information to make the very best decision. And we often champion the idea of personal searches being done by people who have developed long and successful relationships with the various boards and councils that will enable them to get that right information. Today is no exception. Today's topic is people and pixels, the human core of LA searches. Now, when we say LA, we're not referring to part of America. We're talking about local authority. What, Hamish, acquaint me still further.
Well, it's important because we were going to go into the mystical roots with one of our tremendous team of members, and in actual fact preceded. I think Val actually preceded IPSA. IPSA came into being in 2005, right, when the group started to expand. With Jackie, who's been with us before, we don't see Steve any longer because he's now actually retired. But Jackie started up, and she actually has great, and she, of course, she has great experience. And what we try and do, what we're really speaking about in any of these sort of meetings that we have to do with IPSA, is to express, and it's a reminder to IPSA members of how important they are in terms of what they are achieving, but also to promote to other people what they can achieve. Or what they can obtain through working with IPSA members, because IPSA members have a historical reputation out there within the field, working with local authorities. We've had to, over time, what happened in the earlier days, particularly when we look back to Val. I mean, her parents were pioneering in the 80s. Val herself started in the 90s. Just as a matter of interest, going back, just to show how things went historically. Everything was on paper. I'll tell you one of the interesting things. There was a particular council. We used to cover all the London councils as well at one particular stage. My wife used to travel up to London, and we do all the London searches, which was remarkably good. So I loved it. I thought it was absolutely sort of great whenever I went up there. But last thing she wanted to be doing. However, there's one particular council called Tower Hamlets.
Tower Hamlets.
What we would do when we would go in to do the work at Tower Hamlets, because in early days we had to go in and visit. This is where the title of pixels and people comes into it, because we use pixels. We're using the internet an awful lot more now, which means we don't have to go into Tower Hamlets. In fact, what we do, we get somebody else to actually cover sort of Tower Hamlets for us. In fact, a couple of our colleagues who've turned up on the meeting before, Barty and Sharon, we would ask them to look after Whitefield Legal Services. We would ask them to carry out our searches there, because they are experts, they're local people to there, and they know the relationship. However, when we used to go in there, when it worked, we'd turn up there, and they knew we were coming in because a local authority search gathered information from 12 different sort of folders. There were 12 parts to it. 12 parts to it. And what would happen, you would go into Tower Hamlets, and they had borrowed from the local supermarket their trolleys. And what you would find, you would go in there and there are all these trolleys piled high with all of these folders containing all the details for our searches. The thing is, anybody they knew they were expecting 5 or 6 of us.
Right.
So there was all the information for 5 or 6 people across these 12. And you can imagine it was just trolley after trolley. And you of these to find out which of the ones related to your particular sort of property.
It sounds like a right old bun fight.
It really actually was. But the great thing about it, and the truth then, was the fact that you were looking at exactly the same records as the council. Right. You could actually refine them. You could take down verbatim what they had written, or you could actually, some of it needed translating into modern English. Because when you go back to some of the early records, which go back to the 70s and the 60s, and the earliest record I think we've had was a plan from the 20s. Although we had to carry out sort of searches on properties where the stables were, the stables, because it was something to do with Tesco's, and that was in the days when they used horse-drawn carriages. I don't know if it was, but it might have been. So I can't remember whatever one it was, but we had work to do with stables. But of course, that was way back in the early 90s. In the early noughties that we actually went in. Going into the 90s, the interesting thing about the 90s, and the reason why you got people like us going in to do them, was that the challenges which they had. You can imagine all this paperwork they had to wade through to get the information for us.
Right.
They just ran out of time.
Right. So it's just purely right. Okay.
So this is why they had horrendous backlogs of people wanting to carry out the searches, because they couldn't get out searches quickly enough themselves. So by sharing it, unfortunately, they felt whilst we were going in that we were going to be damaging their work. They were going to get their work taken away from them. But it's nothing of the sort, because we are independent. All IPSA members are independent. They're not massive great organisations. We might do a lot of searches, but we aren't doing thousands a month. We're doing hundreds a month. Well, actually, we can be doing thousands, but on the whole, it will be hundreds, several hundreds a month.
But it's not robotic. It's not automated. It's humans making human connections, right?
Oh, absolutely. So this is where the relationships became important, and they continue to this very day. I mean, Val will still be working, Jackie will still be working, and of course Heather, of course, who's actually sort of joined us as well from IPSA, as well as Barty and Sharon, people they were speaking to way back early days. They're still speaking to them now because of that relationship. We don't need to actually go in there. But here's an interesting perspective just to show where things went. What happened in the beginning in 1990, when one of our colleagues managed to actually start digitise what was going on in Cardiff, all local authority searches throughout England and Wales cost £30 each. They were regulated prices. And local land charges information, for those don't worry about, if you don't know what local land charges are, we'll cover that another time. And they were £6 a time. So basically the two combined together, he was spending £36, and it didn't matter where he went in the country. Now, last sort of speaking, if you wanted to actually get, I haven't actually checked the figures out with Croydon, but they were the most expensive council in England and Wales. And once the deregulation came in, their prices shot up, not immediately, bit by bit by bit. And when the last look, they were something like £330. That's a jump up. It doesn't seem much, but it's a tenfold increase. Mind you, it's a little bit unfortunate for they're one of the broke councils actually. Look, Croydon, they've got serious financial challenges. But if you look, and then at one particular sort of point, I mean, it has changed now, but going back about 10, 15 years ago, I know one of the local ones in Northamptonshire, the Corby Council, they were something like £70. So you can see the price difference. But there was a time difference. The fact that it costing you £330 it didn't mean you got it any quicker for £330 if you're going to them directly. And this was a big challenge because it could take weeks and weeks and weeks to get it. So the whole idea was to go in. Now, unfortunately, it's been changed now. They won't let us go in. They won't allow us to get the information any sooner than they can get it for their own clients, which is a bit of a shame. But we weren't competing with them. That wasn't the object of the exercise. The whole object of the exercise was because we're client-based. All IPSA members are client-based, so they're working on behalf of clients. So that's the intent, because it's the person at the end, it's the buyer of the property and it's the sellers of the property are the people that need to be looked after, not the people that are making money in the middle of it.
Right, of course. It seems to me that there's not enough emphasis put on the fact that when you're doing searches, it's not just a box ticking exercise. It's about qualitative gathering of information, and that if you don't have the relationships like the ones you described, you will find it a hindrance to actually get that information. So even if you do have the desire to do exactly that, if you haven't got those relationships, you may find some doors just aren't opening for you.
Very, very much so. Now, I remember well, famously, because it was hard work, because sometimes it was hard work trying to befriend the council members, because unfortunately, they're local government employees. And most of us know, because we have to deal with them from time to time, it just happens to be the way they work. And we need to accept that fact. But you go around for the day trying to cheer people up because your environment, they weren't very happy. They didn't seem very happy about what they were doing. And when you think that what they were doing was so important, they had forgotten that they were working on behalf of the people who were paying their salaries effectively, because that's what they were supporting. Because if we do any work in a particular council area, that particular person is going to be contributing to the coffers of the council. So instead of hindering us, they should have been helping us all along to actually sort of speed things up. So combine between us, but they never worked that one out. But not to worry, it has speeded up now. But what actually sort of happened over a sort of time period with these deregulations of both of them, that didn't help the situation because of cost variance. So what we can actually do, we can flatten things out. Now, there are some councils who will charge money for certain information. It should all be read. It should be available. We should be able to inspect it, but they do charge. But working with IPSA members, one of the great things, they will flatten it out. You're not paying £330 to one and £125 to the other. Basically, there will be a flat rate that people are actually paying for it. So we've sorted the pricing issue out for them. So that's consistent throughout. And as I said, apart from there are a few areas where there are marginal costs, but some of them are only sort of very, very small in relative terms. But also, like you said, it's the quantitative way in which we're actually qualitative way, because we do our looking into it. You think about it, as we said before, there are now 317 councils. What we're able to do is refine the work. So the presentation, it doesn't matter who you go to within IPSA, you will have consistent presentation from the majority of them, or they will provide the search in a way that you would like, because we can actually, this is a great thing. One of the things I, as an individual, my own company, Search and Convey Solutions, one of the things I do is actually produce my report in a format that clients would like. This is what I do when I'm actually working with clients who like it a particular way, but otherwise it's absolutely consistent. So it doesn't matter whether it's a search from Liverpool or a search from Kent. They're going to be laid out in exactly the same sort of way for the people that are actually looking at it from the other end, which is absolutely sort of vital. So there's consistency, and of course we now know that the search is not just the local authorities, because local authorities are combined, so it's now unitary authorities. So they've got 3 or 4 councils working together. But the relationship that people like Jackie and Val and Heather have evolved, and there's people I keep missing out. I mean, one of the famous ones, of course, is is Mahesh down in Wales, who's been working down since 1990. You think the relationship he has with all the councils down there, the fact that he worked for one of them as well, sort of helped too.
Well, this is an old story with you, IPSA lot. Often gamekeepers turn to poachers, and that gives you an extra insight because you have had worked on both sides of the wire. But I think it's a very alluring part of working with an organization like IPSA. You're not really working with the organization, you're working with a collaborative cooperative, a group of people all work together pulling in the same direction, but they're quite happy to pass that to any other of their members who are more apt to deal with searches in that specific area, perhaps because of better geographical knowledge, perhaps because of better relationship with the council.
It's absolutely. It's certain things about, and as we know, as some aspects of work are transferred over to the land registry, they don't understand fully what the work is that's being transferred over. They are not experts on what the local council records are all about. So they just receive the information and pass it on.
Right.
Can't in any way refine it because they don't know how to refine it. They don't know, they can't put it into sort of 12 different categories as we could. Category number 10 was a listed building. If you had a listed building, your details would actually be in the listed building folder, certain aspects relative to it. And of course, all of that's actually sort of changed because there are now government bodies. So this information is coming from so many different places. I mean, a couple of the councils we deal with, they cut out their number 10 folder and pass it over to, I can't remember who it is, somebody do, but it doesn't really matter because my researchers do the work, but they're the ones that have knowledge about it. But the council don't know all that information now. And of course, names change because somebody goes into a flat and they call it the Hobbit Hole because it's a nice name to call it. And that's what they want to call it. But it might have been sort of St. Paul's Pate or whatever, but it could have been anything. It could have been anything prior to that. And sometimes there's no consistency. Remember West Berkshire, if they changed the name, they didn't actually keep it in the same folder. If you went in to actually find out sort of about this particular, and somebody had bought it in 1973 and changed the name of it, you couldn't find the historical records because there was no relationship between the two. However, you could find it out by delving a little bit further, but it's that local knowledge, that local experience. And of course, there's wonderful war stories that we all have that we can tell through our experiences that we have had with the local councils, because they became so supportive because we could actually take the time to get to know them, whereas the bigger companies who are volume related rather than people related, rather than case related, they weren't able to, and they still to this day, they're not able to do it. Obviously, they're getting more experience now in speaking to councils, but it's all to do with data. It's all to do with transferring data, and it's not to do with people. It's not to do with a personal relationship, not with the councils, not just with the council members, but it's also to do with the working relationship, because we provide a service. We're not providing a product, we're providing a service to the solicitors. And we get to take the pressure off of, that's what it's about. We're taking pressure off, we're speeding up what we can actually sort of do, so they're going to get the searches quicker, but they're also going to get them refined, so they spend less time on them. So altogether, we didn't get into all the history because we'll get Val back when she hasn't had to sort of go out and carry a rescue mission, which she has had today. But I think what we can actually sort of say that historically things have happened which have brought it to the way it is, which means the people are key in carrying out this research more effectively because of relationships which have evolved over the years. And we think about it, there are a number of our sort of colleagues within the cooperative whose children have become part of. And in fact, I know of three different sort of people who are members of IPSA. They have actually, their parents are no longer operating within the system. They have retired, they've moved on, but they themselves are actually carrying on. My daughter is one of our best. She's one of our best researchers. She's one of our top flight researchers and coordinators.
Right.
So it's good the way that. Well,
I think it's easy if you grow up around something like that to appreciate the finer points of it and to enjoy it. And I think that's probably what's happened there. Let me draw this to a close and say to all of you out there who are checking in on this, thank you, first of all. And second of all, just to appreciate that IPSA is an organization focused on helping people. It's a help organization. It's a group of people wanting to help you do better. And that's all about gaining the right information. Hamish, thank you once again for helping me present this channel. And to those of you watching, please try and keep your feet on the ground. But by getting better, more accurate information, make better decisions. Until next time, I wish you all very well. Bye-bye now.